There he is. There he is. So with me today is, I dare say, a newfound friend, Blake Herrick. He recently had me on his podcast. It was an absolute delight. So I wanted to bring him on and re-engage my IG Live community. And so here he is. So Blake, welcome. I'm going to do a little intro. Blake is an innovator. He's moving into the fasting realm as a faster himself and a fasting coach. He's a high raw vegan. I would say on a recent journey there in the last couple of years. And we're going to dive into all of that. Definitely into spiritual practices, which we're going to touch upon as well. Is there anything else you'd like to add about yourself, Blake?
Yeah, no, that covers it. I'm new to the raw vegan realm and the plant-based realm. That's something that's new to me. I'm not new to fitness. I had a weight loss experience in high school. I lost 100 pounds and I've kept it off for 20 years. During that time, I've been a fitness coach, yoga instructor. And so it was really interesting for somebody from that background to transition into the plant-based world a little bit later in life. But with that experience, I'm hoping to combine the two worlds and give as much value as I can.
Cool. Well, we're going to dive into all of that. And the format that I've used a lot during these things is kind of where you've been, where you are, and where do you see yourself going. So we're going to go back to where you've been. So let's transport Blake back to you're 15 years old. I'm not sure where you're living, but what are your dreams and aspirations, and what are you doing when you're 15? What are you thinking about life is going to hold for you?
When I was 15, I was in a state of, I want to say, survival. My family was going through an upheaval with a divorce. And not only that, I had some health problems that I was dealing with, and my weight was really, really starting to add up. I'm 6'1". I've always been the biggest and the tallest kid since I was little. So I'm just kind of like a thickly built dude genetically. And so, with that frame, add on Minnesota winters, add on sedentary, probably, depression and anxiety from what was going on in my safety net around me crumbling.
Yeah.
And I think I was self-soothing with food. And also food was a way for me to feel loved and to feel connected to my family when they were so preoccupied with other things going on. And so I was just trying to hold on and survive and try to have friends in school and, try to keep my grades up and everything like that. And it got to the point to where, even though I was a very gifted kid, I was always in the accelerated classes. I was reading at a college level in elementary school and just acing the mathematics tests, the English tests, the science tests. I remember on my ACT, I got a 31, if anyone knows what that is. And that's what, like, I just walked in there, like, and not even thinking about it. And it was a hard test and I got a 31. Apparently that's like a really good score. But with that God-given blessing, I found myself not able to think that far in the future, that I should probably work on that and use that skill and use that talent to my advantage, because I was so preoccupied with just trying to hold on for dear life and try to fit in with my friends.
So when did the journey of, because you mentioned earlier, I think it was, you said you put on 100 pounds or close to, whatever. When did the journey begin for you in terms of turning this around, and what were the factors or the motivations or the people that inspired you to do so at the time, and how did that go?
Yeah, no, that's a really cool story. So, tying back into, I guess I was more of a nerd than a jock type of thing, just naturally. And my mother knew that. She was so proud of me and she was so proud of my grades, and she was just doing the best that she could to raise the family as a single parent. Although, my dad was still in the picture and he was He was a very good father, you know, paying child support and stuff like that. So I'm not trying to have a pity party because I'm the only one invited anyway. I'm just saying that I'm just setting the stage for everyone. And I think I'm the type of person who feels things feels things deeply,
Mm-hmm.
kind of like an emotional, empathic person.
You're Pisces.
And so, you know, obviously the career path that I ended up falling into now, it makes perfect sense to be a coach because I can relate with my clients so well. But, you know, since she was aware you know, that I was a bookworm and um I loved watching the Shark Tank, if anyone remembers that show.
Yeah.
She ended up putting me in summer business camp, you know, where it wasn't like a cool music camp. It wasn't a sports camp. It was literally business camp. And it was set up exactly like you could imagine Shark Tank. They assigned, you know, hundreds of kids. They assigned us into little quote unquote companies. And then we had to come up with a product idea, write a business plan, and then pitch it to, you know, faux investors over the course of a week. And it was a really cool experience. I met a lot of friends. And for once in my life, I felt surrounded by like-minded people,
Mm-hmm.
and I felt like I was making lifelong friends, and it was such a great feeling. And like I mentioned, I lived in Minnesota, so during the summertime, it was a lot easier to be active. I would go for jogs outside along the trail, and just generally be outside, be burning more calories, and I would just naturally, you know, you're a kid, your metabolism's very high. I would just naturally lose a lot of the weight. But
Mm-hmm.
then, you know, after the football season, after they've been force feeding you and trying to get you to gain weight, you know, for football, you know, that eating
Yeah.
habits kind of continues, but then your activity drops off to nothing and you start gaining weight over the winter time. And also, you know, I never was somebody who subscribed to like the seasonal affective disorder, SAD or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
I know you're in Canada, so you probably know people who feel
Oh
that
yeah.
way, that you get the winter blues sort of thing. So I'm not sure if that played into it. And I eventually found tools to mitigate that, but we can talk about that later. There was a reunion for this business camp, kind of in the late spring, you know, after I had gained all this weight.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I wasn't even really thinking about the weight gain. I was just thinking about, oh my God, it's been so long. I get to see my friends who I made over the summer. It's been this long, dreary winter. It's going to be so good to see some friends, and I just can't wait. It's going to be awesome. You know, I show up to this reunion party. It was at like kind of like a convention center sort of thing in Minneapolis, and they kind of acted like they didn't recognize me. And especially the girls, you know, I'm like 14, 15, you know, that I had been flirting with, and oh my gosh, I'm interested in girls now. This is crazy. Wow, they're cute and stuff. They acted like I was disgusting, and they just kind of shunned me out of the group. And I was so confused and perplexed and heartbroken when I put two and two together that I looked differently and had gained the weight and felt like I was you know, even more the black sheep than I'm used to being. And it just threw me in the depths of despair. It was a true rock bottom moment. And that wasn't the end of my weight gain. It took me a while to turn things around. I remember stepping on the scale and it read like 272 or 274.
Mm-hmm.
But I know the weight went higher than that. I remember there was a point in time where my size 40 pants were tight. And so I would just end up wearing sweatpants. And now I'm a 32 waist, if that gives any context to the males out there. A size 40 is a pretty large waist.
Right.
Um, but as you guys know, you can't hold me down. The world can't get me down too long. And you know, my brainiac survival mechanism starts kicking in, and also my ability to be comfortable being alone.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that you and I talked about, and we can talk about that more later. I think that's a good skill. That was good maturity on my behalf back then. Because what I would do, rather than like try to hang out with friends or stay at home and play video games, I would get in my 1989 Chrysler New Yorker, my first car, and I would drive to the Barnes and Noble bookstore, because this was kind of
Yeah.
before Google was so prevalent and Amazon. and I would just sit at Barnes and Noble and read all the diet books and all the health books. And even at that young age, I was very discerning,
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of them seemed like gimmick fad diets, to be
Yep.
honest with you.
Yeah. Yeah.
And one of them stood out because it made more sense other than just a quick gimmick to lose weight, which was the alkaline diet. I know
Mm-hmm.
you've heard of this, and for the viewers watching, I'm sure you guys have heard of this as well, but just a quick synopsis of the alkaline diet. It means you're eating foods that create this alkaline ash in your body, or very simply, foods that promote the pH level of the fluids of your body, your blood, your lymph, to be in a more alkaline state. Because in this book, they show study after study after study of people that are sick and have really bad diseases, their pH levels are acidic. Compare that with healthy people. They were tested, their pH of their bodily fluids is much more alkaline. So they hypothesized that disease cannot survive in an alkaline environment.
Right.
Plus, it's just whole foods. The alkaline diet says eat your fruits and vegetables. If you're going to eat your grains, eat simple grains. Don't eat processed like pasta. Stick with like rice or potatoes for your carbohydrates. And so this whole foods diet is something I immediately started to employ, and I immediately started to feel better. And I'll also, my family had a Nordic track
Yeah. Yeah.
cardio machine,
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
like a cross country skiing machine. I'm showing how Scandinavian and Minnesotan I am right now. And I'm actually Norwegian by descent, hence Nordic track. And I just started working my way up to one Simpsons episode and then two
Yeah. Yeah.
Simpsons episodes or a Simpsons and a Seinfeld. And so I'd be doing cardio for 30 minutes and then work my way up to an hour, just sweating and just out of breath and so uncomfortable. But like I said, when you're young and you can turn things around quickly because everything is firing on all cylinders, I lost 100 pounds over the course of less than 6 months.
Wow, that's great. Now, what time frame are we talking about? How old are we now? How old are you now?
15.
Okay, so you're 15. So you started inquiring about changing dietary, you made some dietary changes, got into cardio. Were you doing any other fitness kind of things or mostly just cardio stuff?
Mostly just cardio. This
Okay.
was in my sophomore year of high school. It was after football season, so throughout the winter, that's what I did.
All right. So then we're moving on to like your later teens. Now, are you still in Minnesota?
Still in Minnesota.
Okay, so what's happening now? So that's the beginning of the journey. Where does it take you to, let's say, just pre-college time?
Yeah, Michael. Well, I lost the weight. I
Yeah,
start my junior year. People are like, "Whoa, this is crazy." Like all my football teammates are like, "Dude, you got shredded. Like, what's going on? This is
right,
crazy." And I just I didn't feel like I guess it felt good. I can't lie that it didn't feel good that to be recognized. But what I strongly remember, because now we're talking about like 25 years ago, like
yeah,
23 years ago, is I just remember being able to beat them finally
right.
on the football team, and I became a starting player, a starting lineman for varsity. I also joined the wrestling team, and so for the rest of my high school, you know, I guess I was still kind of I don't want to say I was like holding grudges or anything like that, but all the cool people who were like, avoiding me or whatever, I didn't want to just be one of the cool kids just because I fit in with them or whatever. I was more so like I had my friends were nerdy musician people because I was also a musician.
So you're in a period where you kind of went from being I'm going to use this analogy, being unseen and now seen, right? And so what I'm hearing is you didn't jump on the hey, I'm seen now and I'm in the crowd, right? You kind of stuck to your the people that you knew, the people who have been around. Um, that takes some fortitude because it's very easy to get caught up in hey, I made it, whatever, all that kind of stuff, right? So bravo for you. Now, How did that all go down for you?
Yeah, that went down interestingly. I had some friends who were in those accelerated classes. I told you that I was a part of, the smart nerdy
Yep.
kids.
Yeah, yeah.
And one of the guys, started a business at a very young age, doing mortgages. And I joined his company and I started making a lot of money. This was before the housing bust in the
Yeah.
US,
Yeah.
of like 2006 to 2008. And my graduating year of high school was 2004. So
Mhm.
for a few years there, and leading into college, I was making very, very good money for a teenager.
Yeah.
So much so that I actually quit college and did it full time as a mortgage loan officer.
Right.
Moved out on my own, got a better car, you know, the watch, the
Yes.
belt, all the
Caught
stuff,
up
and
in a
just
lifestyle. Yeah, yeah.
caught up in the lifestyle, just like a young dude. And then all of a sudden, the housing crash. And then now people aren't wanting to give me their social security numbers. And, the rates are changing. Nobody's, it's like an economic lockdown. And I'm like having to reinvent myself. So I follow my passion of music and I start working at Guitar Center. And
Yeah.
then
Right.
I also start doing like bouncing jobs and at nightclubs and things like that. Living in Minneapolis off of Lake Calhoun, which is very trendy. It's a perfect 3 mile lake,
Yeah, yeah.
so you can run a 5K.
Yeah.
Uh, but eventually, there was one moment where I was going to the LA Fitness that they had there, right in Minneapolis, in uptown Minneapolis, super trendy, like I said. And I went to open my car to get my gym bag, and I couldn't open the car door because it was frozen shut.
Right.
And I'm like, you got to be kidding me. So I kind of like get the bag from the other side. I go run on the treadmill, and I just remember my feet being cold because of my shoes were so cold from sitting in my car. And by some sort of stroke of either manifestation or if it was written into my destiny, one of my best friends from high school relocated to Florida with his family. And he wanted to move out of his mom's place and he needed a roommate. And so I said, sure, I'll be your roommate. So at the age of 24, I moved to Florida. I'm now 39. So I guess it's been 15 years that I've been down here. Um, we didn't really stay in touch for too long because his girlfriend ended up kind of like moving in. And I was like, that's kind of too much. So I moved out and got
Mhm.
my own place. And then I soon met a girlfriend. I soon met my ex-girlfriend, and we lived together for about 7 years in Tampa. And I basically had the American dream: career, job, dogs, girlfriend, 3 bedroom, 2 bathroom house, like over 2,000 square feet in Florida. Um, pension, not pension, but 401k, like I had the American dream just, you know, in the chokehold, but still something didn't feel quite like I was being fulfilled.
And how are you? Okay, so let's kind of fast forward to that time. You're living, very good life in Florida. What is your? Are you still on the alkaline kind of program, or you have you dabbled in other things? Where are you at diet wise and health wise?
Right. Well, right before I moved to Florida, I got my personal trainer certification. You
Okay.
know,
Yeah.
fitness and music were my two passions in life.
Okay.
I stayed on the alkaline diet with intermittent fasting, meaning I basically just skipped breakfast. And still to this day, it's basically the same exact thing that I've done since I was a teenager and since I lost the weight.
Okay, so let's go back to that. So along with the intermittent diet, I'm sorry, along with the alkaline diet, you'd also then began the adventure, the journey of getting into intermittent fasting. So, of which you're still doing today, right? So now, is there what are you on, like 16:8, 18:6? What kind of those of you who are into intermittent fasting are going to understand what I mean by those numbers, or do you vary it? And obviously that's part of your lifestyle.
Yes, great question. Intermittent fasting is definitely a part of my lifestyle. It's even when I just told the story of my whole origin story to you now, um, it didn't even jog my mind to think about it because it's so ingrained in my
Right.
life. So I'm trying to do a better job at teaching people about IF now that I'm focusing on coaching fasting. So thank you for stopping me and asking me on that. It is a big part of my success.
Okay.
And my eating window is from noon to 8 typically. So it's
Okay.
a 16-8,
Yeah.
meaning I fast for 16 hours, 8-hour eating window.
Yeah.
But my style of intermittent fasting, and I like to think that I coined this term, I haven't heard anyone else talk about it in this sense, is modified intermittent fasting. And what I mean by that is throughout my journey, I've always liked to nerd out on things. And when you look at the glycemic impact of certain foods are going to spike your blood sugar more
Yeah.
than others. And when you look at fasting, you can be in a fasted state and still be consuming. A perfect example is water with lemon.
Yeah.
Lemon juice technically does have a little bit of trace amount of sugars in it and carbohydrates in there. But you drink it, it's not going to break your fast, so to speak. If you want to be really technical, it does. But in my form of intermittent fasting, modified fasting, I allow myself to have some what used to be coffee is now herbal tea in the morning.
Right. Right.
Um, Maybe some lemon with my water first thing, some warm room temp ambient water. And then also depending on the workout and just depending how I'm feeling, I might have a grapefruit and I might have sometimes if it's a really intense workout, I might even have a banana like before a boxing workout. And I still consider that so minor of breaking my fast that
Right. Right.
I'll allow those type of things in the morning before my eating window. And then once I start eating, um, we can talk about that as well if you'd like how I structure my meals.
Well, we're gonna get into that. Like, so your first, because one of the things that you're doing now is actively coaching fasting. I mean, you're becoming a fasting coach. So uh, the fasting journey started. So I'm gonna kind of we covered where you've been. We're moving more into where you are now. Um, what because I know you've done water fasting, I know you've done dry fasting, all right? When did that start to enter the journey? Um, because I'm assuming I'm making this assumption that you fasted all along prior to becoming a raw vegan. Would that be a correct assumption?
Correct.
Okay, so let's keep on the train of the fasting thing. So you began intermittent fasting. When did you start to dabble with other types of fasting?
Yeah, great question. I'll catch you guys up from where I left off with the perfect American dream up
Yeah,
until now.
yeah.
And I'll make this succinct for you guys
Okay,
so it's not like a novel. I know I'm like on my soapbox here,
it's all
just
good, man. It's all good. Your places. It's all good. I get it.
and I told you that I wasn't really quite fulfilled. You think I'd be the happiest man alive? And
Yeah.
in many senses, I was. And in many senses, still today, I reminisce of those times and have warm, fuzzy feelings of those times, and just dearly love and have deep respect for my ex and her family and just those years, even my job and my coworkers during that time. Something in my heart was calling me to keep moving, Michael.
Mhm.
My soul was like, you gotta keep going. You gotta keep pushing this. Throughout that time, just to answer one of your other questions really quickly, you asked if I had dabbled in any other things.
Yeah.
I was dabbling in just about everything that you can imagine: keto, vegan,
Oh, okay.
paleo, the keto four, where it's
Yeah, yeah,
mostly meat on keto,
yeah.
and so I won't go too deep into that, but I've always been experimenting with my health and fitness
Hmm.
such that I can teach other people since I became certified in 2010 as a personal trainer.
Okay.
Um, so the impossible happened, and that was that I was fired from my job. I was crushing it. I was the golden boy. I was team lead, training the new hires, all this stuff. They moved me to a problematic team, thinking that yeah, let's put Blake there and he's going to fix it. And then the manager who had oversight of the team didn't agree with my methodologies, and he pulled some sort of strings, and I was let go.
Right.
And this was the best thing that could have ever happened to me, because what I ended up doing is resorting back to that same mindset of when the mortgage industry crashed. I was like, what even are my passions? And my passions remain the same: fitness and music. So without missing a beat, the very first thing that I did was enroll in a music college here in St. Petersburg that is the only public college that has a full recording studio
Oh,
on campus. And at the same time that I did that, I purchased my certification renewal exam for my personal training certification. And I did not miss a beat. And within, I want to say, 5 months, I had a full book of personal training clients, and I was a full-time student at that music school. And for a few years, I was in a band, I was training clients, I was living the dream. Even COVID happened, and I couldn't be stopped, if you will. I kept on going and going. But then, Michael, that bug inside of me that said, you got to keep moving, you got to keep going. Something has to change. It started gnawing it at me from the inside. You know, the personal training career was great and I loved it. Personal trainers are some of America's heroes, if you ask me. They help people. They're invaluable. It's an invaluable career, but it was starting to burn me out just because the nature of when I love doing something, I kind of need to learn to pace myself better. Even with my content now, I'm like, man, maybe you should slow down. I'm posting way too much, but you know, when I love it, I tend to burn myself out. So I'm working on that balance. But um, because of COVID, a lot of my clients were going remote. And during my previous job that I was fired from, that I told you guys about, there was one day where they did a beta test where I was able to work remotely. And I'm sitting here on my, you know, multi-$1,000 leather couch with my 65-inch TV with the laptop plugged into it. I've got my Jack Russell over here, and the girlfriend's at work, and I'm just like sitting here like, I'm getting paid to do this. This is incredible. I don't have to go to the office. I don't have to wear a tie. I don't have to drive. And so I remembered that one day that I worked remotely, and I said, I could do that again. I could get a remote job, focus back on myself, let myself kind of breathe and expand after that 6 or so years of just intense nonstop school and work, and do my business online, because I had aspirations for the digital nomad lifestyle and traveling, since haven't traveled or seen the world as much as I would have liked. And so that's exactly what I did. And so for these past 3 years, probably these past 4 years, I've been in a state of deep self-discovery and applying all the things that I learned in my teaching career, my yoga career, and personal training career on myself. That led into wanting to detox my body from relying on too many stimulants. You know, I was really hitting the coffee hard during my personal training career. And also there's this stuff called kratom tea.
yeah, yeah.
It has an opioid-like effect, and I had some injuries from jujitsu, and somebody recommended that I try that. And oh, it definitely worked, but it definitely will get you hooked on it.
Yeah, yeah.
And so after I kicked that habit and I was weaning myself off of coffee, I felt called to do a fast to help reset my body. And the very first fast that I did was 4.5 days. It was a water fast,
Water fast.
but I was still using teas and, you know, electrolytes and other sorts of things, because that's the best that I knew. That's the best
Yeah, yeah.
information that I had available to me. But I was surprised that I was able to go that long. 4.5 days is 108 hours, which I felt very symbolic because it's the auspicious number in yoga, as you obviously know,
Mhm.
Michael. And at the end of that fast, I could literally feel all those chemicals come out of my body. I remember sitting in the sauna at the gym and just feeling the remnants of the stimulants come out of my body, and like that jittery sort of like high feeling. It felt good and bad at the same time. And I also had some elimination. And the stuff that came out was like black sludge, utterly, I couldn't believe it. And I just knew that that wasn't anything that I had eaten recently, because
Right.
logically I hadn't eaten. So that started my fasting career. I did, the next fast that I did was shortly thereafter. I had the same exact effect, but with 3.5 days or 84 hours. I think your body builds what's called a fasting muscle. Yeah, go ahead.
Let me put a pin on this for a second, because I want to touch on something that you alluded to that is part of all of this. You've mentioned that several times in your life, that you felt there was a void, right? That there was a void that you weren't fulfilling internally, whatever that might be, right? And so the latest void is, you have this lifestyle. That lifestyle changes. Um, what Although that might have been a reason or a thing that propelled you into this, what did it fill any of it?
Oh, that's a good question. That's kind of a loaded question.
Well, I mean, like, not loaded in the sense of, did you find the answer? I don't mean that, but did you find a different level of contentment? Did you find that
Right.
you a different level of investigating other things with respect to not only diet, fasting, well-being, spirituality, all of these things? Was it an impetus? Was that an impetus to start going, okay, I'm feeling, by doing some of these things, there is a different sense of who I am?
Absolutely. And I'm not sure loaded question was the right thing to say, because what was going through my mind when you asked me that is like, oh my gosh, I'm going to talk for another hour on this question. But that's a damn good question, if I must say, because I feel like you and I have talked offline so much as well, and I strongly respect you and look at you like a mentor, and you have this ability. And I even said this to you before, that when you coach and when you teach so many people, you must be able to just be empathically connected with people and just sense and feel where they're coming from, just on a deep pattern recognition type of, I don't even know, like, and so you nailed it with that question. That's exactly what ended up happening, and I didn't expect it. That wasn't my goal going into it. My goal going into it was, okay, I need to move my brand online, and I want to do the digital nomad thing and monetize it and work my remote job, and then eventually have my business income replace my remote job. That was like 4 years ago. But I all of a sudden start becoming, I guess, passionate about different things. I feel like all those fasts that I did,
Yeah.
several, the one 4.5 days, several 3.5, and then several 2.5 day, faux water fasts. Um, I think it cleaned me out to a degree and shook some old patterns loose to a degree. And also, if you want to look at it energetically, I wasn't in the gyms as much. And gyms can kind of be a different vibration to be
Mhm.
around. I remember always liking to be in the yoga studio more than being in the gym environment. That was my vibration was just kind of changing. And I started looking into Hermeticism,
Yeah.
um, natural law, and I started, my passion for yoga and being able to actually sit down and relax and read the Yoga Sutras or read autobiography of a yogi, and that started planting some of the seeds.
Because you've mentioned, hermeticism, natural hygiene, whatever. Was that something you discovered on your own, or was there somebody that you knew that was also involved in it, that you went, oh, okay, this is interesting, I want to investigate that? Or did you discover this yourself for, whatever reason, that you decided, okay, here's where I'm at. I'm in a space where because of fasting, you're going to be more open, right? And I want to start to investigate some of this stuff. How did that all transpire?
Yeah, once again, solid question on that. If you can imagine, like, I've got like the hermeticism, the shadow work stuff, the yoga stuff. And then I've also got this interest in, I guess you could call it metaphysics,
Yeah, okay.
you
Yeah.
know, the the nature of reality,
Hmm.
and how yoga with our the chakra systems and the Shushumna, the Ida, the Pingala, and then even the Taoist Dantians, the lower, middle, upper Dantian with the meridians, how the body is a microcosm of the macrocosm of Earth.
Yeah.
And with that, I found some creators online, and some of these creators were recommending fasting for spiritual enlightenment and to
Yeah.
break addictions and to cleanse the body. And that's what originally got me into fasting. But then, because I go on these, binge watching and binge researching events, now I'm all of a sudden super interested in fasting. And
Right.
then that led me to the juice fasting.
Right.
And so there was a period of about 2024 is a good period, because when I started that first 4.5 day fast was mid 2023. And then I practiced that for the rest of 2023. In 2024, I had made some friends. And, side note, did I make those friends on purpose? Was that the universe putting these people in my orbit? Was it my new vibration was attracting these people? That's
Yeah.
very interesting to consider, that were vegetarian and Hindu.
Yeah.
And so I start going to the Hindu temple. I start practicing vegetarianism. I even start doing some of their puja and learning some of their holidays and just enriching my practice of ahimsa, which is
Non.
non-harmful,
Yeah.
and also brahmacharya, which
Mhm.
most guys online know is no fap or semen retention. um, but brahmacharya has been around for eons. So I'm going through 2024, cutting out the meat, and then I come across Dan McDonald, of all people, Dan the man,
Yeah. Yeah.
and he's doing the juice fasting, and then he's talking about the raw foods, and he's
Mhm.
talking about how people are frugivorous by nature.
Yeah.
And then that opens up Robert Morse. That opens up the natural hygiene stuff. So I kind of start shifting away from the metaphysics, the natural law, the hermeticism, and come more into the natural hygiene. And I thought to myself, you know what? Now I'm at a state, I'm already vegetarian. I already love salads and fruit. I think I can do this. In fact, I know I can do this. I'm ready for this. Let me do this starting in 2025. Let me go raw, and let me try a juice fast. And so that brings us into this year.
Very cool. Okay. So Dan was a big influence then.
Yeah, he was kind of like the Morpheus or the Gandalf on my hero's journey.
Okay. So you start this juicing thing. You should have been with us last year because Marcus, myself, and another guy did a 40-day juice fast from January 1st to the middle of February. Which who knows, we may kick it off again this year. But so juice fasting, primarily fruit juice, or were you mixing, all sorts of things?
Yeah,
And did it change, by the way? Like, let's say you were doing lots of greens. Did you end up either going more greens at one point or more fruit at one point? And how did that go?
yeah. Well, I had bought the Nama J2 juicer as a Christmas present,
Which
and
is
and
is a meditation device in itself.
oh my gosh, it definitely is. You can
Yeah,
either like hypnotize yourself with the
yeah,
the rotor, or just the hum can just hum you
yeah,
into a
yeah,
meditative savasana. Um, and I bought the quart jars, I bought the lids, all the stuff that Dan the man, was recommending. But like I said, the algorithm was feeding me other content creators as well. Um, Shane Sterling was one of those people with Raw Vegan Rising, and he's kind of like the juice fast aficionado that I knew at that time. And he introduced me into the idea of mucoid plaque. My
yeah.
mind was open to that idea because of the sludge that I got out on some of my previous water fasts. I was in a situation where I wasn't going to start my juice fast until maybe March.
Hmm.
But as fate would have it, I twisted my ankle in a yoga studio, and it ended up being a pretty bad injury, and I couldn't really walk on it.
Hmm.
And just from another influencer, Lauren Lockman, talking about how fast the body heals when you're in a fasted state, I said, what a perfect time to just kick off the juice fast now. And I did the math. The reason why I wanted to wait until March is because it was after my birthday.
Right.
But if I had started the juice fast immediately after my ankle injury, I could still get 3 weeks and break it before my birthday so I could have some fruits and guac and all that other good stuff for my birthday. So that's what I did. It started out, I took the recommendations of Shane, Dan the Man, Lou Corona. They've got the lemon ginger blast, which is kind of like a green drink. And Shane will talk about, having your citric sort of juices, whether it's orange, grapefruit, to act as an astringent and to help pull the toxins out of your GI tract. So I took their advice, and I put my own twist on it with the juice recipes. Juicing, in full honesty, I help people do juice fasts, and I wouldn't change that for my life. The
Okay.
2 juice fasts that I did were so pivotal, but it is an investment in the produce, it's an investment in the juicer, and it's an investment in time. So I found a way with simple recipes, typically mono fruit recipes and simple green drink recipes that were less expensive and easier to put together,
Hmm. Hmm.
and drinking them in a certain particular order throughout the day that keeps you feeling nourished and also keeps you psychologically in the game.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so that's kind of like my own little protocol that I invented. And then I perfected that even more on my second juice fast, which the first one was 42 days.
Nice.
And um, by the way, the second one was in the summer. So if you want to do a really long one, do it in the summer because you have your friend, the watermelon, to help you. But it's not impossible to do one in the wintertime. It's just as fun and easy.
It's funny enough because Julie and I, when we went all fruit for a period of time, and we did it throughout the whole winter. That's when we did it originally. Yeah, and of course, because this is the funny part about it, your mental brain kicks in and it goes, well, I can't do that because it's gonna be too cold and it's not gonna be warming enough, which is all malarkey, right? And you find we had no issue with it whatsoever. But okay, so you went from this uh, lifestyle of developing, you're getting more in the yoga community, became vegetarian, jumped on board in terms of the raw world, right? And all of which you're still incorporating fasting techniques, whether it be juicing, this, that, or whatever. So, with that, suffice to say, that's kind of where you are now, right? Okay.
Yeah.
So, because I know you're very active. I know you're running and walking. You're doing calisthenics. You're doing all of that. I just want to put this in context for the people who are going to watch this. So, at one point, you're somewhere around 275. Let's say we'll use that as a number. What are you weighing at now?
Today I weighed 180.
Okay. So, which is, for your size, it's a great weight, right? In terms of the muscle you're holding on to, all the rest. So you've now been on this journey of, let's say, the vegan world, the raw world, yada yada, for, let's say, close to a year, right? Where do you see where do you see Blake going now, right? What is where are your aspirations? Tying this all in, okay? So actually I'm going to back it up a bit. Did when you jumped on board in terms of becoming more joining the vegan sort of community, becoming more raw, did it have any impact on your mentality or spirituality?
Beautiful question. Absolutely. 100% it did.
Okay.
My goal of monetizing my passion for helping people and for teaching, I come from a long line of teachers. I think it's literally in my DNA. My grandma was a substitute teacher up until recently in her 80s, in her mid 80s. You know, my mother, my aunts, they're all corporate teachers, and you know, if you're a mom, you're a teacher. If you're a dad, you're a teacher anyway. But so I love helping people. I'll give you the shirt off my back in a blizzard. That's just how I was raised. And I was telling you guys that there was something inside me guiding me towards something more and
Mhm.
something different. You know, not that there would have been anything wrong if I would have stayed, you know, as a fitness coach or as a yoga instructor, and you would see my brand online, you know, doing that sort of thing. But something just wasn't clicking. Something wasn't keeping me there to do that. Something inside kept on driving me towards more. When I came into the raw foods, I felt like something finally clicked. Like, oh my gosh, I can hang my hat here and just chill here, and this is my brand. I can help people with the raw foods. And so I monetized my brand as raw food lifestyle. And so I was helping. Yeah, go ahead.
I just want to stop you there for a second because I want to kind of just continue the stream of spirituality for a second. So you've alluded to the fact that you had this voice speaking to you, right? And I would say it's fair to say that you have a clear idea of what that voice is. Do you do you have a name for that voice?
Oh man. I
It,
have these
I,
conversations.
what I'm getting at is it was there a deeper recognition of there's more than just Blake? There's something else moving Blake, right? And not the identity of Blake, but is there's this consciousness, God, whatever spirit, whatever you want to call it, right? Did there become a greater clarity to you because you've alluded to you've gone through different stages of your life where there was a void, right? That clearly this voice inside didn't feel that it was being that there was a connection. Now you're much more connected now in your life, right? So is there a name to this voice for you? For you?
I think I just call it God.
Okay,
Um,
great.
I might call it my higher self.
Yeah,
Um, I'm blessed that I was raised in a spiritual family, and I like to say that I was raised in a spiritual family. It was very, very Christian. My grandmother, excuse me, my grandfather was Catholic, but then my grandmother was Protestant,
yeah.
and those two faiths are very different. But when they came together, they kind of had to pick and choose their battles, and then they ended up going to a non-denominational Christian church. Um, I had my own ideas about the dogma that I was seeing, even at a very young age, and the literal interpretation sometimes, or the fact that it could be loosely interpreted either way. And so the reason why I say spiritual is because, albeit I didn't really care for kind of like how the church was being ran as a business and the collection plate and all that other stuff, I just saw the power of faith and prayer, um, and doing good deeds and treating others the way that you want to be treated, and living a wholesome, virtuous, moral life. Um, that that shone so strongly, and that made such a strong impression upon me. And I think that opened my heart at a very young age, and it opened me up to spirituality at a very young age. So I think it was just natural that I felt like I was being divinely guided.
Right. Okay. But I guess what I'm saying is, would you say that there's a greater clarity for this for you at this point in time with that?
100 million%.
Okay. So
Absolutely.
this has become clear from you that void becomes less maybe non-existent in terms of where you're feeling these days. Uh, you're now in this raw raw realm, which is interesting and just great. You're fasting, and where do you want to go?
Yeah.
What's your vision of where you'd like to take this for you? Now, and I'm going to say this, there's two paths here. One personal, and one perhaps what you want to do with this in terms of an identity or a business model.
Right. Let's go with the personal because I've already been kind of like talking about the
Sure.
business,
Yep.
and I don't want to deflect to that. I think I've just been so focused on building up my brand, leading up to the holiday season and getting an offer ready for Black Friday and
Mhm.
for, the new year and stuff like that. My mind's kind of wrapped into that, but I'm glad that you inspired me to answer from just like an authentic personal standpoint.
Okay.
And for me, from a personal standpoint, is that if you want to call yourself like a seeker, a spiritual seeker or an initiate or a student, that's kind of only half of the picture because really what you're seeking is yourself.
Hmm.
We're all fractals of the infinite creator or of infinity or of the all or of God. And it's how much can you dissolve into that yet still be able to wake up, be a human being and function in society and have friends, enjoy good food, live, love, laugh, experience joy, give your gift, all these beautiful experiences that humans get to have. You know, Michael, you're impossible. It's impossible that you're a human being with a soul on Earth in 2025. I'm impossible. Every single human being is mathematically, probability and statistically wise, impossible. This is such a blessing. Would you rather be some stardust or would you rather be in the flesh, you know, walking the dog or, having a sip of tea? I mean, it's this lifestyle has opened my eyes, and I think combined, especially with the fasting, with the physical cleanliness, comes a clearer channel directly to the source, in my opinion. And I felt that anecdotally in my own life. So I want to just keep taking my spiritual practice deeper. I want to get deeper into my yoga practice. I also want to get deeper into Taoist internal arts like
Yep.
Neigong and Qigong. I want to do quarterly long dry fasts. And I think that will be the extent of my fasting moving forward, with the exception of some shorter term water fasts and perhaps like some, couple week juice cleanses that I'll do with my clients type of thing. But the dry fast that I did was such a spiritual experience. And I kind of touched on this before that the more that you fast, that you build a fasting muscle. And
Yep.
if you do it responsibly and without doing them too close, because I was skirting that edge this year, I've done a lot this year. And I think I've felt a little bit of what can happen is it can burn your adrenals a little bit
Yep.
and it can downshift your metabolism a little bit. And so I'm on the other side of that. So now that I've learned the hard way, now if I space these out quarterly and do it in a planned fashion, the way I want to do it is New Year's, April Fools, Labor Day, um, April Fools, Labor Day, and da 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 da, and then yeah, New Year's again.
Okay. Cool.
So I think that's right. But yeah,
All
for
right.
for a
Okay.
year basically, and I still have my goal of doing the digital nomad lifestyle. Where I live right now in St. Petersburg, Florida, in my opinion, it's about the best place that you can live in the United States. It's got a subtropical climate. I live 5 minutes from the beach. I live in a one-bedroom apartment. It's very modest. You can see on my Instagram, reels, my little galley kitchen. But I picture myself eventually living abroad and having some space, having a bigger sort of place, maybe in a tropical environment. Um, and the idea of a relationship, not to give you guys too much information, but I was serious when I was talking about brahmacharya,
Okay.
which is like sexual continence. That's going really well for me. And so now I've transmuted my lower desires up into my upper, my heart and above.
Hmm.
and that's allowing me to focus and, just be in a season of just being me right now. But perhaps there's a little spark of room for a partner there, maybe, if
Sure.
God willing, and just live the
If
good
you're open,
life.
if you're open, it'll come.
There you have it. There you
Yeah.
have it. And that's like my personal. It's very. I want to be financially and temporally free,
Yep.
also geographically free, but I don't need. I want an abundance, but I don't need to have, like, I don't have the same, because when I was a teenager and making literally 5 figures a month as a teenager, and then when the industry crashed and I could reflect on that, I was like, well, what did I really get out of that other than just make a bunch of money? So I want my time to be spent in a purposeful fashion. I'm going to be able to, thankfully, now that I've found something that I can really sink my teeth into and do as a fasting coach, I can have the best of both worlds and have my cake and eat it too. But if you live abroad, our currency is typically about 4 times stronger, depending on where you go. So
Depends
you
on
can
where you.
have a little it depends on where you go.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's like what I want to do. Those are my personal desires, brother. Thank you for asking that.
No, my pleasure. And you actually, that was the answer I was trying to get to when I was saying what was the voice inside. That's the answer you gave. So I thank you for sharing. I try to keep these about an hour because you never know where anybody's mindset is at. This will be one of many, Blake. How can people get a hold of you? Just let them know if they're, and I'm saying, if you're interested, if somebody's out there and interested in looking at getting some guidance with respect to fasting and how to do a protocol, give Blake a shout. Connect with him, and I'm sure he'll help you on your way. But if you can share with somebody how to get a hold of you, that'd be terrific.
Absolutely. And it's such a pleasure, Michael. Thank you so much. And thank you just for being an honestly, like a great role model, mentor, friend, homie, bro. I mean, you're just the man. So happy I met you. And yeah, definitely want to keep these going. We're due for another one on my channel soon, which is just Blake Herrick. My Instagram is Blake Herrick _. Those are the two places where you can reach me and find me. And then my website, which is still kind of in the transition from raw food lifestyle to fasting lifestyle, because I had kind of an epiphany after my dry fast that I wanted to focus on coaching people with fasting, because that was most pivotal for me, especially when I had that aha moment. The intermittent fasting is what was the key to my success for over 20 years of sustained weight loss. So yeah, fasting.lifestyle is where you'll be able to find me soon. And yeah, just hit me in the DMs, you guys. I'm not shy. I'll
So
I'll
check Blake
answer
out
any
on
questions you
Instagram.
have.
Check Blake out on Instagram and on YouTube. And brother, it's been a pleasure. I'll make you collaborate on this so we can both use it. And this, as I said, will be one of many. Thanks for spending the time. Much appreciated. And we'll catch you soon. Peace out, man.
Peace out, Michael. Love you, man.
Love you too.